Would you look at that? This is a Woodland Mills HM126 sawmill. Why the heck did we buy this thing? What are we gonna do? What were we thinking? I'm gonna show you right now. Baby, look at this thing. Right here, we're in Southeast Iowa. This is 40 acres of pristine hardwood timber. Last fall, a professional logging outfit came in and logged 250 trees out of here. Mostly oak, but definitely some hickory, black cherry, walnut, all the kinds of trees they can get out of this type of timber. So then why, after the loggers are gone, would we buy a sawmill? Wouldn't you want to buy a sawmill and log it yourself? Very good questions. Here on this property, it's pretty much all hills, all ravines. We've got about a 3-acre spot of flat, which is where the sawmill will go. Everything else is just steep hills. What this meant is before the loggers were here, I really didn't have access to a lot of the timber other than by foot. So basically they came in with a huge piece of equipment. It was 2 guys, one guy with the equipment, the other guy with a chainsaw, and in 7 working days they cleared 250 trees out of here. What they did was they made trails all through the timber, and they made Arkansas crossings across the creeks so they could get through each area to the other side. Because of that, now I also have access to the entire timber. What they left behind is really what's interesting though. They left all the butts of the logs that they didn't want, the pieces with the crotch with burls in it, maybe some hollow. You have to understand, a logging company, a lot of them are making lumber. They're not interested in the really unique slab style wood. So they left a lot of that behind. Also, all these tree tops and some of the trunk is left on these as well. Obviously, a lot of the limbs will just become firewood. The point being, all of a sudden there's all this wood that's available, plus access to the rest of the timber. The second reason we bought this sawmill is actually pretty sad. Here in Southeast Iowa and much of the country at this point, the emerald ash borer beetle has come through and decimated the ash trees in the forest. Here in Southeast Iowa, the entire timber, this whole 40 acres, I haven't found one ash tree that survived. Basically what these invasive beetles do is they chew all the way around the tree, cutting all the nutrients off to the tree until it eventually kills it. Unfortunately, the damage has already been done, as you can see here, but this wood is still good. There's still standing trees, so I'm going to take advantage and turn all of this into lumber and wood for carpentry and be able to give it another life before it just rots into the ground. Hopefully someday we can figure out a way to bring these trees back, but much like the elm trees around here, these trees that I grew up with, they're no longer here. They're gone now. The other reason that we bought the sawmill is the fact that living here in Southeast Iowa in a timber like this, we have access to all these beautiful hardwoods. Right here we've got black cherry, we've got hickory, oak, a little bit of walnut, black locust. I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff in here. And we even have some pine trees on the property. And I want to make sure and do a very sustainable job of harvesting the timber. My goal isn't to clear cut this timber. I want it to look like this for my kids and grandkids and everybody afterwards. The point is to sustainably harvest trees when they go down, when they're ready to come down, and just have a beautiful source for wood. So when we built our little tiny house on wheels, which you can watch that video if you're interested, I show the whole process in a series of videos. The coolest part was when I made this countertop, my grandpa Upton, who had been a carpenter, had left behind a bunch of beautiful rough cut wood. And I used hickory and walnut. And before this, I really haven't messed with wood too much or done any carpentry. And I just fell in love with the process. I fell in love with the wood. I threw it through the planer and just the grains and stuff that came out of this. It started to make me think like, what's inside of this tree? What does this look like? And to have access to this, and with wood prices today, might not be a bad way to do it. So those are the reasons that buying a sawmill feels like the right decision for us, but I will say that we do have an advantage. First of all, this is my mother's property and she owns all this timber, so that's a huge advantage. Second of all, we have equipment like this tractor. We've got chainsaws, we've got this old truck. We've got enough scrap metal laying around here, and I've got a welder to use and a shop to where I can make this crazy logging trailer, which I'll make a video for that too. The point being, we have a lot of resources already that we don't have to go out and purchase. So that's something to consider, because buying land, buying equipment, that can add up pretty quickly. So think about that if you're trying to buy a sawmill. It's not just the mill. You need to have a way to load wood onto the mill. You need to have land to harvest wood. And maybe you've got that figured out. So why did we go with Woodland Mills and why the HM126? After doing a bunch of research, the reason we went with Woodland Mills was because, first of all, the reviews were incredible. It's a company based out of Canada, and they've only got 3 real models. There's different adjustments to each one, but they've got the 122, which is their entry model. It cuts a 22-inch diameter log. The 126, which we got, cuts a 26-inch diameter, and then they've got the HM 130, which is a 30-inch diameter log. And they've only got 2 types of engine, a Kohler 9 horsepower or a 14 horsepower. So I think by having fewer options, they're able to keep the price down, versus like a Wood-Mizer, which you can get really rigged out equipment with all hydraulics, can cut huge logs. For me at this moment in time, I really don't have the equipment to move around logs that are larger than 26-inch diameter, especially out here in the timber, which has big hills like we have here. I'll put a link down to the Woodland mills and to the saw that we actually bought, and you can actually see how much it would cost to rig it out for you. We did the 14 horsepower model. We've got a track extension, which allows us to cut up to 17 feet 5 inches in length. We can get by doing a lot with just that. So it just felt right to get into this business to start with this saw. The 122 was a little too small. It didn't come with the better engine, and it lacked some of the features like the adjustable feet. The 126 had pretty much everything that the 130 has. It's just a little bit cheaper and smaller. And the other thing is, we just bought a sawmill, so I've got a lot of other things to learn as well. I've got to get really good at safely cutting trees with chainsaws and dropping trees and bucking trees, moving logs around, especially in this timber, which is a lot of hills. That can get very dangerous. So I've got to learn how to operate all this stuff safely. Another thing is just the art of milling wood, you know, learning how to cut wood and get the most out of it. And on top of that, with hardwoods especially, drying wood is where the real art is. If you cut a big old slab out of a piece of wood like this with this big old burl, and you make a 4-inch slab, this could take years to air dry before it would be ready to put in a kiln. I realize they make really fancy vacuum kilns and all kinds of things like that to overcome that right now. But again, that's expensive. And we're gonna start with drying the wood, air drying it, and then I'll make a little dehumidification kiln, maybe a solar kiln, but I've got to learn that whole art. So getting a low price point to enter this game was kind of the idea I wanted to, because I'm gonna treat this business like I'm running a wine vineyard. It's going to take years to make really high quality wood. Of course, I can make money cutting wood and doing all these things in the meantime, but in the long run, I want to make really beautiful pieces of wood that a carpenter would love to make a table out. And I want to learn carpentry too, so I want to do it for myself as well. So that's why we bought a sawmill. If you like that, check out the video about our trailer. And I want to build a timber frame cabin at some point, so check out that. We're going to have content about all this cool stuff. And it would mean a lot to me if you subscribed and liked this video and show it to your friends. See you soon.